Okay, so welcome to week 2, everybody. We are ready to get into some course content beyond just that reading. And for this week, we're going to talk about sentences and periods. So, classical form. These are just phrase types, so we're looking at form at a really up close, zoomed in level. And we'll start with sentences. So for this week, things you need. Somewhere to take notes in a document like this, maybe. You will need the handout of sentences and periods, and then you'll watch the video that I'm making now. So the handout looks like this on the first page, and I'll get to that in just a moment. So when I say musical sentence, I'm using a term that was coined partially by William Kaplan, and he's a living music theorist who came up with a big taxonomy and a big study of classical form in the music of Mozart, Beethoven, and Haydn. So sentences are one kind of phrase that he identifies. A sentence is always going to be, we can make a little sort of list of its descriptors. It's going to be symmetrical. It has one cadence. Let's do a list this way. It's going to be in units of these kinds of bars. 2 plus 2 plus 4 bars. Oops, 4. The first 2 bars are called the basic idea. What happens next is a repetition of the basic idea that I will identify as BI. And then in the last 4 bars of it, we get a continuation. And then at that point, we get a cadence, any kind of cadence. At this point, it's possible that you could see a half cadence, perfect authentic, or imperfect authentic cadence to act as punctuation at the end of that sentence. And this phrase form is developed off of this Beethoven piano sonata. And I'm going to play parts of it for you here so that you can think about it in terms of the labels I was just giving you. So the basic idea of this sonata happens in the first 2 bars, including that pickup. You can marvel at my piano skills at home. I'm really glad to be showing off for all of you now. I know that there are actual pianists in this class, so just, be impressed. It's fine. So anyway, there's our basic idea. Basic idea repeats. And you'll notice that it's not a literal copy and paste kind of repeat. It has been altered a little bit. That basic idea has been transposed a little bit, right? So it's a different harmony that we'll put underneath there when we do that in a moment. The basic idea repetition doesn't have to be an actual copy and paste, but sometimes it is. It just depends. And then we have the continuation. And within those 4 bars of the continuation, we feel an acceleration toward the cadence. So previously, I'll draw this for you onto the staff here. We've got, first of all, we're in F minor, like the name suggests. And we've got a 1 chord at the beginning, not a big surprise there. I need to make my font a little bit bigger. 11 is a little too small. Okay. And then after we move on from that, we've got, I know that this is kind of poor as a way to draw it, but we've got 5, 6, 5. Or another way to do that would be to say 5 with the 6. Actually, yeah, we can do, no, I forgot, it's a mess. 5, 6, and it's actually a 6, 5, right? So we add the little 5 underneath. It doesn't want to be directly under the 6, but okay, there's our 5, 6, 5, and that continues for the next 2 bars. And then notice what happens here harmonically when I say that we increase our acceleration toward the cadence and we increase the drive to the cadence. There's 1 again, and then instead of 5, 6, 5, now we have right here 7 diminished, 4-3, or 6-5 again, excuse me. 6, I'm just going to use that little slash. I know that's not elegant, but that's where we are. E, G, B flat. Oh, is there a D? I suppose there's not. So in that case, it's actually just 7 diminished 6. And then we get to 1, 6 here. And we get to, feel free to pause it if you think you know what those chords are and you don't want me to give it away. If you're not sure what that is, it looks like we've got B flat, D flat, G. It looks to me like a 2 diminished 6, or if you count the F here as being part of it, then that can be 2 diminished 6-5. And here's, 5 at the end. Which means if we have a cadence at that point at the end of the sentence, at the point of the fermata, then that means this is a half cadence, right about here. Anyway, I was trying to point out to you that the harmonic motion was every 2 bars, and then it accelerated to 1 bar, and then it accelerated to half a bar until we got to the cadence. So let me add one thing to our other notes. Let me go back to my Word document. That the first half is called a presentation. That lasts 4 bars and includes those 2 basic ideas. The second 4 bars are called the continuation. And that also lasts 4 bars. So that means that, let me go back to playing it. Here's our presentation. And now we have not had a cadence yet, so 4 bars have gone by, and we're just going to keep moving into the continuation. Note also that parts of the presentation show up in the continuation. So in the continuation, it's common to have, if I go back here, commonly has fragments of the presentation. And the presentation usually has those 2 basic ideas. In the continuation, we can label some of the fragments. I'm going to move my computer so that it's easier for me to write on this. So, well, let's label a few things then. Now you're getting to see that I do not have my Do Not Disturb turned on. Now I do. Okay. So, here is our presentation, which I will always abbreviate pres. And I'll draw a nifty line like so, which should straighten itself out. Okay, so there's our presentation. Just to be clear, it lasts until the end of that bar. Within the presentation here, I will also label our basic idea and draw a similar line to show that it lasted that long, and that line will straighten itself. There's our basic idea. And that same thing happens again. Pretty similar. There's that basic idea there. Here's our continuation. And the continuation, I usually just sort of draw and a little arrow, and then that arrow should hopefully correct itself to show that it's just sort of going on to the next system. And then within that, I usually label the fact that we have a fragment followed by another fragment over here. That da-da, da-da-da, da-da, da-da-da, that comes from here, right? You can recognize that. as having happened. And then we have this actual kind of cadential phrase. So I'm not going to ask you to label that exactly. And the fragments are kind of loose. Like sometimes the fragments are there and sometimes they're not. And it's not something that you need to lose sleep over. So there's the end of the continuation. I'll just stick that up here, just for your reference. It ends with the cadence, so really the cadence is the thing that's telling us that the that the continuation has ended. Oop. So that is how we would go about analyzing a sentence. Let's make sure that it's absolutely clear that this is a sentence, because this packet has both kinds in it. And I want that to be crystal clear. Okay, it's a sentence. Okay, so then let's look at the next example. This is a Mozart example. I'll play this one for you too, and then I'll pause for a moment and let you try to add some of those labels on your own. Starting at the second system again. And you can tell probably that that's a cadence point, so the sentence has ended. Let's talk about this one a little bit. I'll give you a moment though, so you can hit pause if you wish and work on it yourself. Okay, I'm going to assume now that you're back and ready to continue. So let's go over maybe what you've done a little bit. You might notice that this is not 8 bars. Like I was just telling you, all these sentences are going to be 8 bars. So you might have also noticed though that it still has the basic structure of a sentence. It's just that everything has been compressed into 4 bars to fit 4 bars. So instead of a 2-bar basic idea, we get a 1-bar basic idea. There's basic idea number 1. And here's its repetition with some variation. Same basic idea. It is varied, and I know that that might seem like pretty subjective, but guess what? It is. And then here's our continuation. And then it goes on. So another thing to take note of here is that the continuation doesn't really have fragments. The above example is like the most sentencey sentence that has ever been a sentence. It is the most paradigmatic example ever. So it has all the things that a sentence is supposed to have. This example is a little different. It doesn't last the same number of bars, and it doesn't have fragments. So I'm going to step away from my piano again. Let's put some labels on it and see if we can make some sense of it. If you haven't already, I'll give you another chance to pause and go through some of the Roman numerals. Okay, the great thing about phrase form is that it gives you a chance to review both of those concepts. So to start with the key that we're in, which is B flat. And we start, not surprisingly, what just happened? We start, not surprisingly, with a 1 chord. So I'll just move that over here. Okay, so there's our 1 chord. I think it's safe to say that this E natural is a non-chord tone, some kind of embellishing tone, in which case that would make this a 5/6 right here. I love this passage. Is so elegant, it's so pretty. I feel like it's really graceful when it's played by a professional. Then on the next downbeat, we've got an E flat major chord in first inversion, which would be a 4/6 chord. Which of course then is followed by, why don't we even make them kind of go together? Oops, why underscore, I don't know. 4. and I'll slide that into being kind of more in position. There we go. So 4-6, moving to 4 in root position, moving down, not where 4 normally goes, to a 1-6 chord in root position. On the downbeat of the next bar, E flat is back. I think there's some other kind of chromatic movement there to move from 4, kind of stepping up to 2-6. About right there. Again, still not really going where predominants are supposed to go. We go back, actually, not to 1-6, but first to 3. It's a little bit of a chromatically thorny spot because of these chromatic non-chord tones. Followed by 1-6. 3 to 1-6, maybe a little bit less weird. Followed by, if you take all of this together, I would say that that looks to me like a 5-6-5. I know that's not how you would normally write 5-6-5 on paper. Again, we're all doing the best we can. So 5-6-5, of course, goes to 1. It does look like it has maybe some non-chord tones there, this E flat acting like a little appoggiatura. That's okay. To 1. And then you may have notated this differently where you went previously. I am going to try to notate this as specifically as I can so that it will make sense to you. You may have called this a 1-6-4 going to a 5 chord, and we are not going to call it that. We're going to always call it this cadential dominant, cadential 6-4 chord. We're going to call this a 5-6 going to 5, and then 4 going to 3. Now that might seem weird to you and you're like, but it looks like a 1 chord, and indeed it does look like a 1 chord, but it's not being a 1 chord, it's being a 5 chord with a suspension on top of it. Different textbooks and different institutions treat that differently. In the actual field of music theory, this is the industry standard, so that is how I'm going to do it. Also, you heard me say before that this is the cadence point. That's why I stopped playing there each time. That's the end of the sentence. And so there's our half cadence. They don't always end in half cadences, just these two do. Okay, so now let's look at it in terms of a sentence. I was talking through that before when I was sitting at the piano, that we start with a basic idea, of course. I'll put that here. Sometimes you gotta just put stuff in the staves where you have room. And I'll put the next BA there, just to sort of make that extra clear. This is all of the presentation, these 2 bars, and I'll use a line to highlight that. It's really good that it corrects it for me and makes it nice. Okay, so there's our presentation, and then here's our continuation starting here. The thing is, and I feel like the time when we teach this is when undergrads start to get squirrely about it. I'll just put continuation in parenthesis and put this here. Is that usually the way that you learn music theory at first in undergrad is that everything is very discrete, black and white, has right and wrong answers, etc. And by the time we get to form, that's less and less true, and students start to get really upset. And so know that I understand how you're feeling, and also that's how actual music is, right? Actual music isn't just, something that fits into unique boxes, and so we're going to have some discrepancies sometimes and things that might seem weird. So anyway, I say that as a way of getting back to the fact that this is a sentence, but one notated bar actually is the equivalent of 2 real bars. It's a special kind of sentence where that's the case. Now notice also that it's an adagio tempo. So that's not actually unheard of. When the piece is slow, it's notated this way for the ease of looking at it so that these aren't all quarter notes or something. But, or eighth notes, I guess, would be the case if it were half a bar, becoming 1 real bar. But so I like thinking of it this way. 1 notated bar is the equivalent of 2 real bars in terms of the sentence, because sentences usually have those 2 bar basic ideas. So that's how that one works. If you have questions as I'm going, feel free to put them into the discussion thread, and I'll definitely check and answer your questions there, and you can also see if you can answer anybody else's. That's fine. You're not required to do that, but if you'd like to, you're welcome to post there as a place to sort of house questions, or you can always email me and I can go over them with you too. Okay, and so there are 2 more examples of sentences here on the second page of the handout. There's the Beethoven and the Mozart, and I'll play each of them for you. But I think I'm going to ask you to do them on your own, and then you can, post them in the discussion thread if you want to. I'll post this annotated version of the whole document at the end of the week, and you can sort of check it against what I put there. But I won't put that in the film itself. So with this Beethoven, we're in G major. Throws me so much because of how the downbeat is unaccented basically, and the and of one is accented, and it just messes with my mind. Anyway, so another sentence, have a look at it, and then this Mozart example, same deal. That's fulfilled all the requirements for the sentence, right? But then this second part repeats, which sometimes happens. And then you can imagine it resolves to the tonic. So anyway, go ahead and take a look at those and work through them on your own, and then I'll be back with another video starting with this example about musical periods. And that's all for now.